In the early 2000s, the internet was a vastly different place. Most websites looked something like this. The majority of communication was still done through chat rooms, and YouTube was still in its infancy. But during this time, the internet was also going through a renaissance.
Well, the AOL Time Warner mega merger yesterday has put the word broadband in the news. Well, what is broadband?
With the introduction of broadband internet access, allowing much faster speeds, and the introduction of Flash and similar web plugins enabling dynamic content and interactability on web pages, quickly modernized the internet to bring it to something that resembles more what we have today. This era gave birth to so many classics in every genre of media, from music to video and video games. But it just so happened that this mix of still early and unstable internet and the ever-accelerating and evolving nature of it causes so much lost media to be created when things eventually come to their end. So many websites, hosting services, video sharing platforms, and social medias from that time have long been gone, replaced by better technologies. And with each one of their closures erasing with them whatever was hosted on those platforms. In a second, vanishing from the internet, marking not only the end of a technological era, but also of the vast repository of creative work that had defined a generation of internet users. And if I'm gonna be honest, I don't want the things that I remember from my childhood to be lost and forgotten to time. Thankfully though, the legacy of the old internet still lives on, somewhat. Thanks to the efforts of archivist organizations like the Internet Archive, we can still visit and experience these long-lost websites through digital libraries dating back all the way to the 90s. And thanks to the Blue Maximus Flashpoint project, we still have over 200,000 games and animations that have been preserved to be viewable and playable till this day. However, even with all this effort to preserve our digital past, there is just too much stuff out there to fully save. And even for the stuff that's been recovered, a huge amount of that is found incomplete, broken, missing a few crucial files, making it impossible to archive fully, and creating a myriad of abandoned, nostalgic lost media.
You've got mail.
It looks like I fell for another phishing scam, and now my computer is infected. All because my email address and personal information was available online for anyone to see. This wouldn't have happened if I had used today's video sponsor, Aura. Performing just a simple Google search of your name and email address, and you might get shocked at how much information about you is just out there, exposed for everyone to see. This data gets hoarded by data brokers from websites that you sign up to, and then gets sold to the highest bidder, which most of the time ends up being scammers, spammers, or anyone else who may want to target you for nefarious reasons. Not only that, but data breaches serve as a danger for even your private online information that's locked behind a secure account. Just a month ago, AT&T reported a data leak of 73 million current and former customers to the dark web. Your full name, email address, home address, health records, passcodes, as well as your relatives could and are most likely somewhere out there on the web. Aura is an identity theft and fraud protection service that helps you keep your devices, finances, and personal info safe and private online. It's simple to understand, easy to set up, and all in one place. Aura scans the internet for your personal information and deletes it, making you harder to track and therefore safer. Aura even alerts you when it detects a threat to your identity, online accounts, or new credit file inquiries, while also acting as your antivirus, VPN, and password manager. With cybercrime on the rise, prioritizing your and your family's online safety should be a priority for everyone. So, let Aura clean up your online mess by going to aura.com/virtualcarbon or by clicking the first link in the description below and start your 2-week free trial now. Thank you Aura for sponsoring today's video and keeping us safe. In 1989, a man named David Baszucki would launch a simple program through his brand new company known as Knowledge Revolution. This simple software was called Interactive Physics, and it was a 2D simulated laboratory written for the Macintosh Plus, where users could play around with a variety of objects, ropes, and springs to create little physics experiments. This little software was accurate enough to even simulate textbook-level physics questions. After the success of interactive physics, David would go on to create a 3D version, able to simulate complex mechanical devices. Then he would have the idea to create a video game utilizing his then state-of-the-art physics engine. Years would pass, and David would step down from the founder and CEO of Knowledge Revolutions after it was acquired by MSC Software. But the idea of creating more video games didn't leave David's mind. So, development for a new game would begin in the early 2000s, and the project would appear on David's website September 2003 under the name eBlocks, which 3 months later would be changed to GoBlocks, then a few days after to Dinoblocks on December 2003. And this would be the very first version of the game that would later be known as Roblox. Dinoblocks would be changed to Roblox in 2004, and by mid-04, a Roblox beta would be released to the public. Now, the rest is history, and Roblox would go on to become extremely successful and popular. But what few people know is that the majority of Roblox clients from pretty much 2004, or since the release of beta, until 2008 have been lost. Meaning that nearly every version of Roblox released before 2008 is currently lost media. But why is this? See, prior to 2008, these clients used to be hosted on roblox.com/setup. Downloading whatever version from this website would give you an MSI file. These files were used to manually update the game. But the issue is, MSI files actively grab their content from an online source when downloading and installing their content, meaning the files themselves don't hold the data, but are merely a tool to grab data from a dedicated server and update your game. This, as you could imagine, creates a problem when trying to preserve these versions. As of February of 2020, Roblox would private all their previous deploys, making them also inaccessible, meaning even versions before February of 2020 are also lost media. The search for Roblox's lost clients would start in 2017, when an archival group by the name of Roblox Client Search would form. And within the first year, many advancements would be made. First, a paste bin would be found, containing versions prior to November of 2009 and going all the way back to August of 2008. Then a user by the name of Musical Programmer, who happened to have played Roblox in 2007, would contact Client Search, providing them with several 2008 versions and 4 2007 versions he found on his computer. In February 2020, Client Search had most versions between November 2009 and December 2012 archived, with everything after 2012 until 2020 and everything pre-2008 still being lost. In the last few years, many leads were found and contacted, and with each one, certain glaring issues kept reappearing. Either they didn't have the computer they played on back then, or they had the computer still, but either the hard drive was wiped or it had failed due to age. And that's the main problem with this search. With Roblox being an aging game, with every day that passes means that there are just less and less possible machines out there with a copy. On top of that, there are only so many people who could have had these versions. In 2005, there were barely even 100 players playing a game. By 2006, that number went up to around 10,000. client search were also able to find David Basuski's personal email and contacted him, hoping he still had these versions backed up. I honestly am not sure if this email works anymore, but I found it somewhere online, so I thought it was worth a go. I was wondering where the first 1,000 Roblox models are. They all appear to be missing, except for a few from the user toolbox. I also have been wondering if you have any prototypes of the Roblox software. I've seen a few early screenshots and it interests me quite a bit. I was hoping I could try out the alpha version of the software, quite honestly. I love how much the Roblox engine has evolved. I really want to take a look in the past and try out really old versions and see how much has changed. To which David replied, "Thanks. Unfortunately, we don't keep old Roblox versions alive. It would be too complex to deploy them." Perhaps the growing demand and awareness given to the Roblox client search community will eventually grow enough to reach those who still have these versions on their machines, or those who might still have them and are just unaware of it. Maybe even David or whoever worked on a game during its early stages will come out with these forgotten versions. Until then, I guess we just have to wait and see. And if you are interested in joining the search, the link to the Roblox client search Discord server will be down below. Groove was a 3D game engine that was active between 1998 and 2009. It was an engine able to run fully 3D games using a C++ based web browser plugin simply through Adobe Shockwave Flash Player. The main focus for the company that developed the engine, the Groove Alliance, was to develop games to advertise various toys, movies, and cartoons. These games could be played online with a web browser plugin. Often, these games would have a more fully featured version which could be purchased and played offline. And this 3D Flash game engine that 3D Groove developed was very popular back in the day. Some notable mentions of the games they developed during this time period are Danny Phantom Ghost Sweep, Dora's 3D Backpack Adventure, Fairly Odd Parents, Information Stopper Highway, Hey Arnold Runaway Bus, Kim Possible Middleton Mayhem, Otto's Killer Carvin Snowboard, and the Powerpuff Girls Showdown in the Sky. Amongst the non-cartoon games, we have McDonald's Grimace Shake Scramble, Nesquik Chocolate Fountain, Radio Shack RC Stunt Machine Showdown, and AT&T's Ultimate Challenge. The problem arose, however, when 3D Groove announced their shutdown in 2009, and since all their games were hosted on their platform, this meant that they would be gone with them. Some games were able to be archived through the Wayback Machine, but because a good majority of 3D Groove games were for the most part available for purchase and download, with many of them having a limited version playable on the browser for free and a full version which you would need to run on your personal computer, causing many of these titles to only have their trial versions archived, causing a whole bunch of 3D Groove games to become lost media overnight. One of the most popular examples of this is SpongeBob SquarePants Saves the Krusty Krab. It was a game where you could play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward, with the goal of collecting as many Krabby Patties as possible before a timer runs out, or as the game put it, before the opening time of the Krusty Krab. This game was completely lost for more than a decade, but was recovered in 2015 by Coco Chats, a Lost Media Wiki member. This recovery was only partial, however, as it was only the trial version of the game that was found. It wasn't until another Lost Media Wiki user, Tommy Shadow, would release a full version of the game when he uploaded a massive mega folder with a large number of previously lost 3D Groove games on October 3rd, 2018, including the SpongeBob game, as well as another previously lost title, Pringles Pony Express, which was lost also for years, even though it was one of the most remembered ones of the bunch. And like other 3D Groove games, it was very similar to the SpongeBob game. where you would play as Mr. Pringles riding a horse around a Wild West environment, collecting Pringles cans and making it to the finishing line before a timer runs out. However, even though most of these titles were recovered from Tommy Showdown's mega folder, there are still some 3D Groove games out there that still have not been found, or are only partially working, with large chunks of them still missing. Jimmy Neutron Got a Blast Rocket Race is one of those games. It was an online racing game where players could race each other through multiple race tracks. Players could also customize their own rocket ships, but the game had many of its customizable items locked behind a code screen that could only be unlocked if players entered code found on Nickelodeon merchandise. These codes would let you unlock more ship parts to play with. Even though the game was still available on the Nickelodeon.com website until February of 2017, the version that remains is much more stripped than the original one that was available in the early 2000s. No one knows for sure why this happened. In the archived version we currently have, you can't upgrade your rocket, save any changes made to it, and the only race course available is the space race course. The other courses remain lost. We still have archived commercials of the game where we can see how the game once was, as well as other maps. The good thing is, the majority of 3D Groove games have been recovered, and the rest of the games that are lost are either smaller or more obscure titles that are still being looked for till this day.
During the early 2000s, we saw the birth and rise of the very first virtual celebrities, from Hatsune Miku and Gummy Bear. Every day there seemed to be a new animated character to take over the internet and our YouTube homepage. But perhaps the most remembered virtual celebrity from this era was Crazy Frog. Also known as the Annoying Thing, Crazy Frog was a Swedish animated character / musician created by Eric Warnquist. What started as a personal project by Eric would go on to become a global phenomenon. Post its debut album released in 2005, Crazy Frog's Crazy Hits was a collection of famous songs that were remixed with the character's vocals, of which Axel F, a remix of the theme song for the 1984 film Beverly Hills Cop, currently sits at 4.4 billion views on YouTube. And like anything that was extremely famous during this era, Crazy Frog would receive video game adaptations, toys, and advertisements. However, despite how prominent this character was in the 2000s, some of its more obscure pieces of media seem to have been lost to time, like the lost unreleased song, YMCA from the Crazy Hits album. The song was meant to be a cover of the 1978 single by American disco group Village People, but seems to be completely missing from any release. And despite it being cited and referenced as the last song in the album by many sources online, the song is nowhere to be seen, seemingly scrapped right before the official release due to some licensing issue. Very little info is available online about it. Whether the song is still available somewhere is unknown, and the search for the lost YMCA song seems to be at a complete standstill, with no new leads available yet. Crazy Frog also has 2 lost video games, a cancelled PlayStation 2 game called Jamster All-Stars. In it, you were meant to play as the 4 Jamster characters, searching for the music notes that were stolen by Crazy Frog. The game was originally reported to be released on September 14th, 2007. However, it would eventually end up getting pushed to November 2007 until updates on the game's progress went silent. And then there's Crazy Frog Collectibles Faces, a puzzle game of which very little information is available online. The game was supposed to be a sequel to the Crazy Frog art game on the Nintendo DS, titled Crazy Frog Collectibles Art School, a simple coloring game. In 2021, a Redditor would find a screenshot of the gameplay of the game in a French booklet. What's interesting about this is that while Crazy Frog Faces doesn't seem to exist, there was another game released around the same time titled Crazy Chibo Puzzle Party, which, comparing it to the screenshot, looks like the exact same game. When players dug into the game files, they found crazy frog assets still within the game itself. It seems like the game was rebranded last minute, perhaps due to another licensing issue to Crazy Chibo Puzzle Party. But perhaps one of the more interesting pieces of lost media from virtual celebrities is the one from the famous English virtual band, Gorillaz. Following the huge success of their debut 2001 album, Gorillaz, and their second album, Demon Days, in 2005, Gorillaz began advertising their third upcoming album, Plastic Beach, planned to be released in 2010. And across 2009, Gorillaz would preview many songs and snippets in their promos leading up to the release. Most of the songs showcased, however, never actually made it to the final album. Prior to this, Gorillaz always released a following compilation album to each of their projects. These compilation albums would have songs that perhaps didn't make it to the original project, remixes, and bonus tracks. Gorillaz had G-Sides, and it was released 9 months later. Demon Days had D-Sides, and it was released 2 years later. Similarly, fans were expecting a compilation album for Plastic Beach, perhaps with all the unreleased songs that were teased before the album's release. However, a Plastic Beach compilation album just never happened, leaving many fans to question and ask the band for a release. The album would come to be named by the community as C-Sides, and for a long time, it just stayed as a what-if project. That was the case until a post was made on the Lost Media Wiki on May 2nd, 2023. Hi guys, hope this is the appropriate forum. If you're a fan of Gorillaz, you probably have heard of the collection of long-lost songs referred to as C-Sides, which is a fan title given to the various tracks used to advertise 2010's album Plastic Beach. Only a few months ago, my friends and I came across a Discogs listing called Music from the Next Album, an eternal promo CD of some sort, which seems to contain a number of these lost songs, including those heard in the idents. It's hard to say if this is some odd, obscure false lead, especially considering the completely silent owner and seemingly suspect scans, but a lot of details certainly add up. At the very least, it's believable, and for songs that are so sought after, it's hard not to be excited. Any help in furthering our search for this CD and its contents would be amazing. If it's real, this is the closest we've ever gotten to the tracks, like Mr. Lights or the original full-length Pirate Jet. What do you guys think? Any ideas on where to go next on this hunt? On first viewing, it seemed like a big discovery had been made, that C-Sides was actually real and released privately. But after further investigation, this discovery might not be the big lead that everyone was hoping for. First of all, the only piece of evidence we have that this is indeed real is a posting on Discogs of a tracklist, a cover, and a guide claiming to have the official compilation album for Plastic Beach, that he allegedly found just sitting at a local record shop in Bryan, UK, and that it just so happened that he has neither a physical nor a digital copy because he sold it to a private collector for a strong price. When asked why he didn't just try to upload these greatly sought after songs, he claims that he attempted to, but was stopped by copyright claims, and no longer has the rips he used. It's also been known that many Gorillaz fans have created their own fan-made versions of this C-Sides in the past, so it wouldn't be a complete surprise if someone just made up a fake version and posted it to Discogs. But whether this is legit or not, this post has reignited the community's search for this questionable album even harder now. So I guess for now it's just a matter of time to see if a copy will be recovered or not. Another piece of lost media from Gorillaz from this same era. In 2010, Gorillaz launched a web game on their site, created to promote the band's then current album. The game would be titled Escape to Plastic Beach, and it was a multi-chapter action/adventure game centered around Gorillaz and set in the Plastic Beach album world. The game was divided into 3 distinct parts, each offering a different style of play. The initial 2 sections, chapters 1 and 2, were made available for free on Gorillaz.com in late February 2010 as part of a free-to-play online release. The first focused on racing and pursuit, set within the Stylo music video's backdrop. The second chapter featured a water theme, likely based on the On Melancholy Hill music video. Both games were only in 2D. In March 2010, a trial version of Chapter 3 was introduced on the same website. This one, on the other hand, was fully 3D. In it, players controlled Murdoch in a flight-themed adventure around the Plastic Beach Island. Following this shortly, the full version of Chapter 3 would release, and this one, unlike its predecessors, was not free. Priced at $149, and it came with an MP3 of Superfast Jellyfish, the 6th track of the album. A version for iOS devices was also released in July of the same year, priced at 99 cents, but included only Chapter 3 of the game. Sadly, however, the web version of the game, including Chapters 1 and 2, was discontinued in 2014 after EMI, the record label for Gorillaz, filed for bankruptcy. Followed by the subsequent release of their album Humans in 2016, the site was redesigned, removing the Plastic Beach features and minigames, and reducing the chance of the game's revival. Additionally, compatibility issues with newer iPhone and iPad models have rendered the iOS versions unplayable on modern devices, and unavailable for official download. As the game currently stands, only the demo web and the iOS version of Chapter 3 have been found. The ISO port was found on April 16, 2021, when the iOS game's IPA file for Chapter 3 was shared on the Momentum Dev forums by user Nagy Attila ORG, and the demo web version on November 2023 by Reddit user Local, or LOQAL, who was able to retrieve the Unity file for the web demo of Chapter 3 from the Gorillaz.com sites via the Wayback Machine.
Okay, after all that talk, I'm feeling very nostalgic. Let's play some Minecraft. Minecraft was a game that I remember playing a lot of in my childhood. And still to this day, my favorite versions of Minecraft to play is always the late beta phase of the game. There's a certain peacefulness to this era, and to early Minecraft in general, that I just can't find in any version following the main release of the game. I guess it's the simplicity of it, the perfect amount of everything without any bloat, just the core mechanics that made Minecraft so great in the first place. And I find that enables a much more relaxed way of play, that focuses more on creativity, building, exploring, and less on survival mechanics. But as simple and relaxing as the game was back then, it was also much scarier in general from what I remember. Up until that point, the game still didn't have a running feature, so you were stuck slow walking everywhere. Mix that with the overall darker nights due to the lack of a brightness slider, and you have a game that goes from a fun, creative pastime to a pseudo-horror survival game at night. When the music turns off for those few moments, and all you could hear are your footsteps, it's a reminder that you're the only one truly left alive in this vast, empty world. And that was true in the older versions, where there was no pre-generated structures, nor villages. It was just you, the mobs, and the fog. Then you happen to pass by a cave, and you hear that. The game captured this ominous effect so well that for many players back then, they felt that feeling intensely, that they were being watched by something just beyond the fog, or just around every dark corner of a cave. It was pretty much a consensus back then that we were not alone in old Minecraft. This was a perfect breeding ground for all kinds of theories and speculation. Minecraft was somewhat of a mystery back then, with the game still being new and unknown. It made everything and anything plausible. It was during this period of Minecraft history where some of the most infamous urban legends and creepypastas were born. These early days of Minecraft, when Notch was still testing the game and developing its core mechanics, had their fair share of odd structures or glitches that would generate throughout the world that were fixed or removed from later versions. In the first test of Minecraft InfDev, which was the first version of Minecraft to have infinite world generation, for some reason obsidian would spawn across the axis of the game, generating north, south, east, and west, in a strange line across the entirety of the map. Within this same version, if the player moves around 500 blocks 45 degrees left from the direction they spawn at, you could always find this, a giant brick pyramid, for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Also in InfDev and in early versions of Alpha, players could also encounter a certain glitch in the world generation that would spawn these giant monoliths that would protrude from the ground up until the world height limit. These monoliths would be completely flat at the top, creating an abnormal and ominous feeling whenever players would encounter them. There's another thing that was also removed from every version of Minecraft post beta 1.8. The forgotten limits of Minecraft. The Farlands. These strange natural formations are the results of Minecraft's natural world noise generators reaching their limits. More than 12 million blocks out from spawn, the mathematical limits of Minecraft's old worlds would result in this phenomena. You know, ever since I found out about the Farlands' existence in Minecraft, I've always found myself fascinated by them. And for one reason or another, I feel a need to venture in and explore what exists within and beyond these strange lands. There's also a certain beauty to them, to the chaos. These cascading drops, stretch out canyons and tunnels, pathways that just keep on going as far as the eye could see. The Farlands are so far out from the normal playable Minecraft area that certain things just simply don't work correctly anymore. Even things like torches are broken, making this whole area dangerous and unpredictable. But the fact that life still flourishes this far out makes it strange and uncanny. It truly feels like I'm exploring another world when I'm here. Some place I'm not supposed to be. Some place where something else calls home. I don't think I've ever encountered a space in any video game, let alone Minecraft, that's more liminal than this. Minecraft by itself is a pretty liminal looking game, just based on its art style and generation. I think why the Farlands are so interesting to me is because I feel like they're Minecraft's own versions of something like the Backrooms. An area that exists beyond the normal world, where the simulation bricks and the fabrics that make that reality are stretched and warped. It's always been there, millions and millions of blocks out. It's far enough to be out of sight and out of mind, but for those who venture out far enough, will eventually come face to face with the end of Minecraft. But besides the removed features and missing glitches of old Minecraft, one thing that could come as a surprise to many is that Minecraft by itself has many of its versions and iterations that have been completely lost to time. In fact, out of the 400 plus different versions and editions of Minecraft Java, there are around 108 versions that are completely missing. And that's because despite Minecraft being the most played and most popular game in the world, there was a time when it wasn't. A time when it was just Notch by himself working on this strange little game project and releasing the builds he developed to his unknown blog and gaming forums to a small number of early followers. Back when Minecraft was only known as Cave Game. Cave Game was the codename for Minecraft for the starting weeks of development before it was changed to Minecraft. This test version of the game was never publicly released, but we do have footage from these original versions from Notch himself. Before that, the game was known as Ruby Dung. It was supposed to be a top-down Dwarf Fortress type of RPG with a first-person mechanic. This idea would change when Notch would play a game known as Infaminer, an open-source multiplayer sandbox that utilized the block-based mining and construction we would see later on Minecraft. We only have 5 screenshots of the game during that period of development, but we can already see how the look of the game and the textures went on to influence the look of Minecraft. Now, both Ruby Dung and Cave Game versions of Minecraft are basically completely lost, as they were never publicly released. Although you could technically still play the pre-classic versions of Minecraft from the launcher, these versions were added in 2013 and have a recompiled source code, making them not fully original. Minecraft would then go into its classic and in-depth phase. These are where the majority of Minecraft lost versions can be found. First of all, the majority of the Minecraft classic versions are lost, leaving behind only a few videos like for 0.011a, 0.013a, and 0.014. Other versions like 0.09, the only archived bits of them that we have is some screenshots. And for most of the rest, sadly, we only have archives of the Tumblr posts of the releases with no ability to download them or even see what they looked like. For in-dev, we have slightly less missing versions, but still almost half of the released versions are lost media. Out of inf-dev, only 3 are missing, and for alpha, 9 are missing out of the 63 different versions. Now, if we take a look at the Minecraft launcher, we will find that it's missing the majority of Minecraft versions, with the launcher only having 10 pre-alpha versions when there were supposed to be 80. If it wasn't for the hard work of Minecraft archivist groups like the Omni Archive, we would have far more lost media versions out there. Thanks to them for not only finding these versions, but also preserving and archiving them for the sake of Minecraft history. If there was one word to summarize late 2000s internet horror, it would be none other than Slender the 8 Pages. Released in June 26, 2012, Slender the 8 Pages quickly rose its way to the top of the indie horror game scene back then, when it was still in its infancy. Following the meteoric rise of the Slender Man myth on the early internet, the Slender Man would become one of those internet creations that would break out into the mainstream and become a mythological figure to haunt many, virtually and in the real world. You cannot have a conversation about internet culture and history without that tall, lengthy, pale creature making its way into it. But this global rise of the Slender Man would not be possible if it wasn't for the game it inspired. Slender the 8 Pages. A tiny horror game that would blow up out of nowhere, pushing the name of Slender Man to an overnight internet phenomenon. Despite the game's simple concept, find your way through a forest and collect the 8 pages. And I think that's why it worked so well, utilizing the concept of less is more and letting the players scare themselves through their own imagination. I remember watching this game many times as a kid, although never had the courage to actually play it. However, despite the origins of the Slender Man's myths or creepypastas being well known and documented, this game, as famous and influential as it was, its history and origins were actually unknown for the longest time. Until one ordinary night on June of 2022, a post would be made by user ManPersonGiraffe. For those unaware, Slender the 8 Pages was a game based off the Slender Man mythos. The game took the internet by storm and popularized the character, a faceless suited man who stalks his victims before their disappearances or death. Many old builds are publicly available to download, but one was lost to time, and most seem to be totally unaware of it. A friend of mine has recently discovered this Unity forum thread, an AI tech demo for a game titled Slender by Agent Parsec. This game would later on become Slender the 8 Pages, which, as you all know, completely blew up. But shockingly, it seems like the existence of this build has went unnoticed. OP would give a bunch of other links of his findings. At the bottom I say, I have asked Parsec on Twitter if he still has his build, but I'm not hopeful that he does. Thus, I am coming here. This game is a very big piece of internet history, and it'll be awesome to have an old version where the game had a totally different name in our hands. The Parsec that OP was referring to was the creator of the game. The first link takes us to the original Unity forum titled Slenderman Work in Progress, created by Agent Parsec on June 2nd, 2012. Building a game based loosely on the Slenderman mythos, you have to go through a wooded area with some old buildings and collect all 8 pages that are randomly scattered in the area. As you start collecting pages, however, the Slenderman begins stalking you and becomes more and more persistent as you collect each page. Right now I'm testing a really basic movement script for the enemy I made. It works really well, but it has the drawback of requiring the level to be perfectly flat, i.e. no slopes, hills, stairways, second floors, etc. Everything has to be on the same level. While that's definitely a limiting factor, I can deal with it, unless someone can help me find a way to fix it. The forum by itself is a kind of devlog from Parsec on the progress of the game, going back and forth with others on a thread on ideas, progress builds, and mechanics he's working on. We see how the reason why the original Slender the 8 Pages game was set on a flat terrain is because Parsec didn't really know how to make the nav mesh for the Slender character work on a hilly environment. Parsec also gives download links to builds of his game as he develops it, taking on feedback from the community. These download links where you could download the demo builds of the game are sadly all broken. The only thing left are 3 videos that just so happen to have been archived by the Wayback Machine: SM Test 2, SM Test 3, and SM Test 4. SM Test 2 starts with a white box version of the map. Parsec is testing out the page pickup feature and the sound effects that would play and exaggerate as the player picks up more and more. This version of Slender is only a white orb, and when the player looks at it, the famous static effects takes over. SM3 begins with the player walking around a more developed version of the map. There is grass on the floor. The player picks up the pages. This time, they actually look like the ones from the final version of the game. The map here is made up of pillars and walls, and Slender actually looks like the one from the final game. SM Test 4 seems to be from the same build as SM Test 3, only this time the pages are placed on top of boxes and are stuck onto walls instead of just floating. I think it's pretty cool to see the archived history of arguably one of the most important horror games of all time, helping shape not only the horror genre for years to come, but also internet history. And to have all the development stages and conversations documented is amazing to see. If only we could have the early versions that Agent Parsec released to the public to test out his game. Well, I guess the only thing left for us to do at this point is just wait, hope, and see. It's not always that you find relatable, nostalgic lost media these days. For me at least, I think the most interesting lost media cases are always the ones where I can personally relate to. Lost media that I can remember from years ago but is no longer available. Most of the time, lost media is usually too obscure, leaving only very few people able to know or remember what it is. It's a bit uncanny to see something that so many wildly know, remember, but also be so lost and forgotten. Well, I guess with that being said, maybe it's time to call it a night. And I'll see you very soon.